So there is a viewer who left a comment, and this is a segment for you. If you're a granny in the UK who's homebound but really likes seeing the insides of the cabin, I want to do this shot for you. I'm going to show you how I'm starting up the fire and walk through that process and tell you maybe a little bit more about the cabin and what we think we're going to do with it. This is an open fireplace, meaning there's just a big hole and a chimney that goes up into, goes up above the roof line. And the interesting thing about that is you can get moments where smoke comes into your house. And this is bad, right? Like smoke and all the carcinogens that would be in, say, a cigarette are in the same combustion byproducts of your fireplace. And so I read a study years ago about how people who lived with open fireplaces had just as much of a risk of lung cancer as smokers. And so, Cabin Chick and I took that very seriously. We run a filter in the other cabin because that's where we have electricity. I can't do much about it right now here, but long term, what I'd like to do is get rid of this big open area. I'm gonna fabricate some glass doors and put some airflow pieces in there. I'd like to research what wood firing catalysts there are, because modern stoves have catalytic converters that continue to burn the wood more efficiently. And while I'm doing all of that, what I'd like to do is integrate a blower around it. So imagine glass windows across here, an internal firebox, and then I can blow the air from around that firebox back into the environment. With doing all of that, we can really lower that risk. And of course, we run an air filter. So the first step is making sure the flue is open. And you close the flue when you're not using the fire, because wind will blow in and throw those ashes all throughout your house. We don't have these very much anymore, but these are newspapers. And these were left here by the previous owner. And I saved as many as I can because they're really convenient for starting fires. So when you're starting your fire, there's a couple things you can do to help lower the amount of smoke that comes into your house. And one of those things is to just light up some newspaper and hold it up here by the flue to pre-warm it. And the other part is to make sure that you don't go too big too fast. So you want lots of heat. Heat wants to go up. And you want low smoke. So use small sticks and things to catch quickly. So I like to put down me a bed of newspaper. And then just a whole bunch of twigs from the outside that are nice and dry. And I just throw them on to my newspaper pile. Air is the key, right? Fire needs three things: oxygen, heat, and combustion to keep going, right? I think that's what's in the fire triangle. I'm sure somebody on there, I hope there's a fireman out there who can tell me what the three things are in the fire triangle. Oh, fuel, that's what it was. Three things a fire needs: fuel, air, and heat to sustain. So there's not going to be any heat here at startup, so we got to make sure we have a lot of heat. And also, fire likes to burn up. So the fire starting thing that I do is I like to get it into like a triangle and have kind of a vertical effect, so that as I'm lighting things, the heat goes up and draws it up the mantle. I should have a lighter. It's one of the most important tools you got to carry with you. Oh, there's one here. Good, because I think mine I left with my bag. So I'm just going to go ahead, get this fire going. And the idea is just to keep an eye on that there's no smoke rolling out here. Right now it's really cold inside. In fact, it's colder inside than outside. So you have physics working against you a little bit. Heat wants to rise. Well, let's try and there we go. Heat wants to rise. But if there's a warmer air layer outside, it's difficult to start drawing air in through the fireplace, especially when it's colder inside. Oh, I'm having a hard time here. I packed that one too tight. There we go. He just needed more air. Then you'll see the smoke start to go up. We don't want a lot of smoke because that just goes into the house. But this little bit of paper that's burning primes the chimney. And then it starts this process where now the smoke is getting pulled in and up the chimney. Now, once you've been burning any fireplace that has a stone mantle, it takes a good 24 hours for that to really heat up. And so you really got to be careful with growing your fire at the right rate until you get your mantle warm. And then once your mantle is warm, it's radiating that heat into the whole cabin and it keeps it at a nice temperature. And because it's warmer inside, there's more air always rushing through and it helps keep the smoke out. And so that's going to be the balance for today. Let me show you how that fire is looking though. Okay, really quick, easy startup. And once those logs on top catch, I'm going to go ahead and put some bigger ones on top. So just with the fire starting, it is right around, let's see if we can get that thermometer there, 35 degrees in here. I know the temperature outside is already over 40, so let's see how long it is. We're going to mark this time. It's, I think, just right around noon. We'll see how long it takes us to get to that comfortable 70. I'm gonna guess we might get there by 8 tonight. That's about as perfect as a startup fire you can get. Very clean burning, very hot, and it's catching the logs really well, those small split wood logs. Now, because it takes so long to really start this up, I'm gonna have to go cut and split wood. So it doesn't seem like a lot of work to use the chainsaw and have to do all your cutting, but I am gonna bring up my lighter chainsaw tomorrow. So the one that I'm using here, it weighs 15 or so pounds, and you're like, well, that doesn't seem bad. But imagine going to the gym, grabbing the 15-pound weight and just moving it in all kinds of directions all the time. And you just, it tires you out. And so my other chainsaw's lighter. I'll bring that one up tomorrow for limbing. And then that's kind of how I do it. I have my limbing saw, I got my bucking saw, and just go back and forth between them. And it makes my life more enjoyable. I know how to know when I need to put more wood in the fire. Well, you can now start to see a little bit, just a tiny little bit of white smoke coming out of the chimney. If I zoom back, you can just see it puffing a little bit out of there. And that just means that it's starting to burn through the fuel it has. And so I'm gonna go in, take some of this new cut wood that I just did, and just freshen up the fire. So this is what that fire looks like that's making that small amount of smoke. So this is still a really great fire. It's still kicking it out. And in fact, I suspect once the mantle is warm that this is you won't need a much bigger fire than this to keep the house warm. But until that happens, we have to get this burning more efficient. So what I'm gonna do is, I call it dressing the fire. What I'll do is I'll knock down some of these logs and coals and get them onto the bottom. And that'll become the next bed of coals for the fresh wood that I put on top. So to dress up the fire, I'm just gonna grab my log tongs and just grab them and kind of move them around a little bit. Rotate these guys that were partially combusting. I get a couple of logs that are good, or coals that fall that are good, I'll throw them back on there. And then these logs will become, like I said, that log bed for the logs that or the coal bed for the logs that I throw on now. These guys burn long, slow, and fairly hot, or fairly warm, but the new wood that I just chopped, you're gonna see this fire is gonna wanna jump up. So I throw in a couple of these smaller, dried little logs to kick up the fire, and then I brought in some bigger ones that can become the coal bed for that next layer, so to speak. So, and I get those coal ones just kind of in front of it so they can start burning, and they help keep all that heat around for the warmth of the fire and keep your combustion efficient. So that's kicking up nicely. I like the way it's positioned. I'll just let that burn a while. I think I have some extra smoke at this end that I want to make sure that end stays hot, so I'll throw that guy there. I don't think I need much bigger than that. All right, and by the way, it's just about 3 o'clock and we're only at 50 degrees. So this will take some time, but we're getting closer. Thank you. You're doing great, boo. Hey, you can just set those in front, I think. Those are gonna be small ones. We don't gotta chop.
Yeah.
So I just went and found some dead trees with the chainsaw, bucked them up, and I'll have to split those later. Those are a little too big to throw in the fireplace. But these little small guys like this, as long as they're dry, I don't have to split them. And so that'll get me, like when I'm tired at night, I just save these there so I don't have to come out and split. All right, so just a little bit after 4, we're right about 60. That's good progress. I'm gonna go run down to the other cabin. I've refreshed the fires with some new large logs and threw a couple more on to bring the heat up. And I think we're gonna cook dinner here and spend our first night up the road. So what are you cooking for dinner?
It's a rice bowl that has vegetables and tofu with a peanut sauce.
Nice. Do you need a hand or? Okay, well, thank you for doing that. This is our first, actually this is our second meal in this cabin. Thank you. Well, good morning. We're learning a lot living up here and just spending the night. We had dinner last night, kept the fire going all night. When we went to bed, the hottest we got it was 68 degrees. What's the matter, you? And when I woke up this morning, it was like, it was down near 50. I put a huge fire in there and it's slowly climbing back up. So we're getting ahead of the curve. It'll only take a couple hours to recover for that lost heat. But with the way that these cabins work, right, you got to think the entire structure, that's the 1 foot thick log walls, the floor, the ceiling, all that stuff was at 30 degrees yesterday, or 35 degrees, 45, whatever it was we started at. And so you have to put all the energy from the burning of the logs into not just heating the air, but the entire structure around you. So I think we're learning more. It's a bigger cabin, twice as big as the other. I burned a ton of wood just to kind of get it up to temperature. And I think I'm going to be burning a ton more to stay here for the next couple of days. We got that storm coming in, and I know we're going to want to hunker down. So I think today's the day I got to go out and get a lot of wood. Okay, to give you an idea of the volume of wood I burned, we packed this box, and that box is pretty much as large as the opening of the fireplace in depth. So imagine if that was solid wood. That's how much we burned last night. That's quite a bit. That's a lot. That's 4 or 5 times more than I would burn in a night at our tiny cabin. And so the nice part about just trying this place out and getting a feel for it, I've learned a couple of things. So at night, I stacked my wood across the entire length of the fireplace, and I kind of let the hot corner burn to the other end. And when I wake up, I get and throw more wood into the area where the hot ashes were, and it burns its way back. And I did that about 3 times last night with a pretty large fire. Hopefully I can use smaller wood tonight and we can let that burn process go slower. But I think I'll figure out how this fireplace has to be used to keep us comfortable inside. So another thing I've been thinking about is where am I going to keep the wood, all the wood that we're going to want to burn. I don't like it being on the porch, and you certainly don't want it close to your house because of, well, wood attracts rodents as well as it's a fire hazard. So I've kind of started to eyeball where I think I'm going to put our wood shed. And it seems to be right there. It gets a lot of good sun. There's no snow on the ground. And I don't have to walk far to go get wood, but it'd be far enough away from the house where I think if there were rodents, the pine martens will get them, or whatever their predators are. I just want to make sure we have enough to get us through this weekend in this storm. I think we got 2 or 3 days of snow coming, probably another half a foot. So take advantage of the good weather when you got it, and prepare for it. And I think that'll get us through, and we can actually enjoy the weekend here. I'm not sure how sustainable it's going to be. I think we're going to have to spend the rest of the winter in the small cabin, but this has been good because it's giving me all kinds of ideas about how we want to live here.